This is going to be a pretty complicated briefing, and I just want to make sure I clarify something in advance. We have two unique individual aspects of the organization I'm going to be speaking to, or issues I'm going to be speaking to. And although they are sole and separate, and I'm going to do my best to keep them in their spaces, there is an overlapping issue. And that's the reason I'm bringing them to you collectively as opposed to independently. So I really need, and I don't mean this to sound disrespectful, they say the devil's in the details. There are a lot of details. And I need you to really dig in to make sure that you're clear on those details so that when you report this to the community, they have a clear understanding, because it is not going to be, it's not going to be easy. And it's not going to be simple. But let me just start by saying, as the sheriff, I will demand that every aspect of this organization is done professionally and ethically, and that we are accountable to everything. And there is no greater responsibility, though all of our responsibilities are very important and serious, there is no greater responsibility than for us to be a disciplined organization as it relates to the acquisition, retention, distribution, and use of firearms. The fact that we engage in decisions on a daily basis that involve deadly force, and that we are training and distributing firearms to our employees, and by extension even to civilian members, volunteers in the organization, is a critical responsibility. I demand that we are highly accountable, and the community deserves nothing less. So it is no secret, the first part of this briefing today is going to involve a recent audit that is still ongoing, but this audit was conducted on the heels of the shooting a few months ago, where we know that 2 weapons were recovered that were fully automatic, one of which that was not recorded from a previous audit. So let me extend my gratitude first to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and their exceptional employees who played a critical part in leading us and working with us through this audit pertaining specifically to fully automatic firearms. And it wasn't just their expertise or their effort that was critical, but because the record keeping in this organization from previous administrations was so poor that we did not have enough data to actually account for our own weapons to determine what was missing. But because ATF does have all those records for all fully automatic weapons that are acquired, we were able to get more accurate information. So in the original audit, and again, there's going to be a lot of numbers, I'm going to do my best to stay on track. And if there are errors, we'll be sure to clear those up. But in the original audit, we had 15 fully automatic weapons that were already registered in NCIC as either missing or stolen. That is prior to the incident that I was speaking of. That is from an audit that took place prior to taking this administration, but the report was delivered shortly thereafter. In this most recent audit, which has taken some time, we have identified an additional 14 fully automatic weapons that were not accounted for, that were missing from this organization, and were overlooked or just frankly directly missed in the previous audit by the previous administration. So we know that there are approximately, I say approximately because we believe that we have a few that are now located but not taken yet from that number. We have 29 fully automatic weapons that were acquired by the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office that are either missing or stolen. Additionally, there are 20 short barrel shotguns, which are also weapons that require tax stamps from the ATF in order for any individual or agency to possess those. And we have 1 short barrel rifle. The time frame of acquisition of these firearms originated all the way back to 1959, was the oldest one. And the most recent acquisition of any of these firearms was 2006. So those are the windows of when these weapons became the property of the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. So in summary, there are 29 fully automatic weapons that are either missing or stolen from the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, 20 short barrel shotguns, and 1 short barreled rifle. Thus far into the audit, there has not been a single indication to show that any of those weapons have gone missing from this organization since I've taken office. They all occurred prior to my arrival. What I have done to ensure that we are responsible and accountable, as I told you in the past, we changed policies, but due to recognizing how egregious the circumstance is, annually, every member of the organization, whether they are an employee or a civilian volunteer with authority of law enforcement, annually will bring either their county-issued weapon or weapons, as well as their own privately owned, but weapons that they use during the course of their duties, to their qualification, where they will be photographed, the serial number will be photographed, the ID of the individual who possesses those weapons will be photographed, and they will all be kept in a database. This is as aggressive a step as I can think of to ensure that every individual in this organization is responsible to recognize that the property of the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office is the property of Maricopa County residents. And we have to be responsible and accountable to those. And any weapon that you are using as a member of this organization in any capacity must be accounted for. We are continuing the audit of all weapons in the organization. We are also working hand in hand with our federal partners to ensure that any of these weapons that may have information that could lead us to the individuals who are in possession of them, or if any criminal activity took place, that it will be handled appropriately. Today, we will be sending out correspondences to about 7,300 current and former employees, to include any civilian volunteers who are part of this organization currently or in the past that may have knowledge of or possession of any of these weapons in hand. That letter is originating from the ATF. It will give a 30-day window, and you'll be able to get a copy of it for individuals to have the opportunity to return those weapons if they were acquired in some manner not believed to be criminal intent. We don't know the practices of the past. We don't know if some of these weapons were given as gifts or how they were acquired or how they left this organization. But at the end of the day, we need to get them all back. And we cannot allow for them to end up in the hands of people who wish to do harm to our community like occurred in that incident. Give me just a moment to review some of the details here to make sure I'm covering everything. As it stands right now, as it relates to fully automatic weapons within the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, there are 3 primary units that are still in possession of a small number of fully automatic weapons, and they are the most highly qualified, highly trained members of the organization who are part of our fugitive apprehension team, our Special Investigations Division, and our SWAT team. So a very select number and very few number of individuals within the organization have the authority, the training, and the permission to possess and utilize fully automatic weapons during the course of their duties. All the other weapons have been taken out of the hands of individuals out in the field who may have possessed them, and they are now in our property room, and I'll make a determination going forward as to what we'll do with those weapons. But it will only be in the circumstances of those most highly qualified, highly trained, and highly responsible to possess the weapons that are this sophisticated in nature. Told you about our ongoing audits and what our efforts are regarding being a more responsible organization, but I said it before and I will say it again, this is unacceptable. It is unacceptable for any law enforcement agency to be this negligent, to not keep accurate records, and to allow for weapons to be distributed in a manner that doesn't even have any oversight or accountability, and for those weapons to eventually leave this organization, because not only are they the property of the community who has empowered us and funded us to acquire these weapons, but they are the responsibility of the organization to make sure that they are lawfully used and that they are the property of those who are intended to possess them. I know you're going to have questions. I'm going to ask you to hold on to those, because the next area of this briefing is going to be more complicated than what I just spoke of, and I would prefer to hold questions till the end if everybody's okay with that. In addition to this audit, I have spoken some time ago about ensuring that every member of the organization meets a standard that is acceptable and deserving of the privilege of law enforcement. We have a high volume of civilian volunteers who support the efforts of law enforcement within this organization through the posse. And majority of those men and women are exceptional people deserving of that authority. But the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, in its practices of the past, failed those individuals greatly also. And because of those failures, I have to take steps to address them. And I will start by giving you the example, and then I will make the statement regarding this. But we have what's called a QAP, a Qualified Armed Posse. These are volunteers who are members of the posse who are certified, or at least given a certification, to also be armed during the course of their responsibilities as volunteers within the organization. The number that we believe is accurate, because it fluctuates, is 235 members of the QAP. So these are 235 volunteer members who are part of the Qualified Armed Posse. We have 6 requirements to be a member of QAP: a background check, a personal history interview, a polygraph, a psychological exam, a urinalysis, and then a qualification with the firearm. Of the 235 members who are currently certified as QAP, only 4 have passed, or I shouldn't say passed, have taken every stage of that process, have gone through all 6 stages to receive certification. That does not mean that the balance cannot pass or are not deserving. That means that this organization failed those members because we did not run them through the entire process before giving them certification. When I say the organization, again, there was a push to increase the volume of that posse by the prior administration, in my opinion, for the perception of showing some expansion of law enforcement force, which I really think was more so politically motivated. And in the haste to do so, we have a lot of men and women who were given this privilege, and not that they're not deserving, but there was no standard that was kept to ensure that they'd all gone through that process. So this is absolutely a failure on behalf of the organization and not those individuals. But because of those circumstances, I am forced to temporarily suspend the enforcement operations of the posse program. This is specific to those members who are involved in actions that are enforcement related. We have many other posse members, our search and rescue, our memorial fund, others who are not involved in enforcement. It will not be impacting them. And this temporary suspension does not mean that those individuals are not appreciated and will not have an opportunity to complete the process to see that they have passed each stage and can continue on in that capacity. But I cannot and will not, in good conscience, allow for this organization to have standards that meet the expectations of our community of what it would mean to be given this authority and the privilege of being in law enforcement carrying a weapon if we are not delivering and holding to those standards. The review of the QAP is what led me to recognize that even for some of those individuals, they're not QAP. They may be working in enforcement activities but don't carry a firearm or are a part of that posse. But until we can do a thorough audit and until we can incorporate all those individuals through this process so that we can ensure they meet the standards, I can't allow for this to continue until we've done our due diligence. And again, I apologize to the posse members because it is not their shortcomings or anything on their, that anything is their fault. It is the fault of the disorganization, the lack of standards and commitment to excellence by the organization historically. And under my direction, it's not going to continue. They will be receiving correspondences also. So for those who have met the qualifications, they can continue on. For the others, we are going to be expeditious. It is my hope that within 60 days that any individuals who wish to continue that have not completed the process, that we will get them through the process to make that determination. But I will tell you that there were examples of individuals that were given the privileges and in the audit were not deserving. Yet the previous administration overlooked that and allowed for it to continue, and I can't. So I want to close by repeating what I just said, and then I'm happy to get to your questions. But the reason I incorporated these 2 elements is because they all tie to one critical piece. We must be an organization of high integrity and ethics in everything that we do. So if it is the possession or acquisition of firearms and how we account for those and how we distribute those and train for them, we will meet the highest standards. If it is the blessing of having volunteers who wish to come work with us and deliver public safety to expand our reach and increase the volume of our force, it's greatly appreciated. But no different than men and women who go through the academy to get these privileges, to the posse members who wish to make that sacrifice, we will have a standard and the standard will be held. Again, my apologies to the posse members for what is going to be an inconvenience, and I know that this will absolutely affect the volume of those members who wish to continue or are entitled to continue. And it will absolutely affect our ability to meet the needs of the community, because we are already an organization that is depleted in resources. But I cannot weigh one against the other and say that it's okay to continue not having the highest standard for law enforcement.